On the 9 o'clock news tonight, Water Committee postpones vote on final report. Fine Gael seeks further legal advice as the party remains at loggerheads with Fianna Fáil.
This is a complete shambles. I cannot remember a single straightforward issue being so comprehensively mishandled.
Commission finds senior Garda management didn't know non-999 calls were being recorded. The census reveals an older, less religious and more ethnically diverse Ireland. And President Trump hardens his stance on President Assad and Syria. Good evening and welcome. The Oireachtas Committee on Water has postponed a vote on its final report until next week as deep divisions remain between Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil over the future funding of water. Fine Gael has requested further legal advice on the report, which it has criticised as dishonest and politically expedient.
Ahead of the water protest this weekend, some of the more than 30 TDs who are members of the Right to Water movement were out in force this morning, claiming victory that the Water Committee was getting rid of water charges.
Our collective view is the report, which we're going to vote on later on today, is an enormous victory for the Right to Water campaign. Charges are gone, mandatory metering is gone, and the constitutional protection for public ownership is there.
The unprecedented movement of people power in this country over the last 2 years has imposed its will on Dáil Éireann.
And inside the chamber, Sinn Féin and Solidarity, People Before Profit were also raising the issue. But on the government benches, Leo Varadkar, sitting beside the Line Minister Simon Coveney, was aiming for Fianna Fáil.
The party of Lemass, a party that was once proud to stand up for things that would do the right things by the Irish people, is now in a position that it determines its policy on water solely out of their fear of you.
And as the Water Committee met this afternoon, there was no sign of any compromise between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael.
It's very important that whatever we put forth is legally sound, so that Ireland isn't in breach of the Water Framework Directive, and that we as a committee don't expose the people of Ireland to enormous fines.
All I'd say is repeat what my colleagues have said. This isn't now just about water. It is about standing by agreements that people made. It's about keeping your word.
The Water Committee postponed a vote on the final report until Tuesday to allow for more legal advice. As to what happens after that, different members of both parties were sticking to their party positions.
If there are illegal elements to it, as determined by the Attorney-General, clearly that will not be tabled on the floor of the Dáil.
I never ruled out a compromise on the legislation as long as the legislation is in line with the recommendations of the committee.
The issue has been postponed until next week, but few believe it will be resolved by then.
Sunset at Poulafuca Reservoir, one of the country's main sources of drinking water. But the sun is also setting on water charges, with refunds likely. However, the whole affair has cost millions, and repaying customers will be expensive. A total of €162 million has been collected from nearly 1 million households. But all households, even those not liable for charges, were entitled to the €100 water conservation grant, amounting to 89 million paid out. It's not clear yet whether refunds would be net of the grant.
This is a complete shambles. I cannot remember a single straightforward issue being so comprehensively mishandled by the Irish political system for donkey's years.
And what about the utility itself? 172 million was spent on setting up Irish Water. It now has 700 employees and contractors for billing. The report says meters will not be mandatory in new builds. So far, just over half of all households, or 880,000, have meters. But it now seems the existing 4,400 district meters will be used to find leaks. They can determine the amount of water to an area or region and can identify individual leaks if additional sonar equipment is used. But Irish Water says it won't be nearly as efficient. Any new means of paying for water would have to comply with EU laws, including the polluter pays principle. However, the EU's Environment Commissioner has already questioned whether what's proposed would comply, raising the possibility of daily fines for Ireland, which would amount to millions of euro. Sandra Hurley, RTÉ News at the EU Commission's office in Dublin.
And our political correspondent Martina Fitzgerald joins us now from Leinster House. Martina, with words like dishonest being bandied about, is there any possibility of agreement between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael on this?
Well, the standoff between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael continues this evening, and realistically no one is expecting any major development over the weekend. It really has been pushed out until next Tuesday. Now, Fine Gael today made a request to the committee that a senior counsel who is an expert on EU law should look at the draft report. It's not clear if their request will be granted. The present legal advice has signed off on the draft report and has also suggested that this is an issue for the drafters of the legislation. But Fine Gael sources saying they would take it very serious if the committee didn't accept their request. But realistically, I think the best opportunity to potentially resolve and negotiate this is when they are drafting the legislation. And Barry Cowan said today, if they can't get agreement at that point, then it is an issue for the parliamentary parties of both parties and also for the leadership, because you really are in election territory at that stage, and an election that no one in Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael wants. And on this